So, little person made of plastic, tell me about your father. Lego Ninjago movie, the latest in the Lego franchise. Wasn't exactly one we were looking forward to. Heck, we didn't even know it was really happening until we saw the trailer before the Lego Batman movie. So, hey, more Lego. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And I guess that was kind of my attitude watching it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily a great thing either. To be said, Lego Ninjago is not a bad movie. Don't read this wrong way. It is not a bad movie. The hitch with this movie is that whereas the first two films had a much stronger focus on the character, this one, not just the character, but the characters, this one, you might as well have just called this movie Lego Daddy Issues movie. And that would have been more accurate. I was watching this and there were two things that was entering my head. First and most obviously, Luke and Darth Vader. I was thinking about this going, what I'm seeing now is essentially a comedic version of what it would have been like if Vader decided to actually try and be a good dad to Luke after dropping the bomb on him. And then, alternatively, it was Buzz Lightyear with Emperor Zurg when he found out, and they were like, yeah, you're a great dad, you're finding out more about that. That's what I thought the entire time through. And this one, the trailers were building it up to be a big ensemble animated comedy like Lego Batman and the Lego movie. And this one didn't do that. I don't know if this is a movie that they should have focused on strictly like, well, really just two characters, maybe three, and if you're lucky, by interpretation, four. It didn't have the focus that the other two had. And when you see that this movie was written by about 6 people, you gotta be left to wonder why someone in that room didn't go, what are we gonna do with these other 5 ninja characters that we got? One of them's a cyborg. Why are we not doing anything with them? Yeah, you're not hearing me wrong. One of them is a cyborg. And I'm sad because it's voiced by Jared from Silicon Valley, and that makes me sad because you don't have him and not use him. Same thing with the rest of the cast. You had Michael Pena, you had Kumail Nanjiani, and I was like, why are you not using these guys? They're all fantastic. You have them come in and basically just be support to Dave Franco, and I got nothing wrong with Dave Franco. Him and Justin Theroux as Garmadon, they actually do excellent jobs carrying the movie. But this should not have been their burden to carry. That's the major fault with this movie. So I know I'm getting into the bad, but let's focus on the good. First off, the humor is definitely par excellence for Lego. I was laughing consistently. So as a comedy, it is absolutely fine. The animation is absolutely wonderful. It's still the same animation that I fell in love with during the Lego movie when I was looking at it, and I was so fooled into thinking that it was stop motion because I still love the amount of detail in the animation where you look at a Lego minifigure's arm and you see the seams from the plastic mold. I was like, that's great detail in here. And so that was definitely something I was not in no shape, way, or form worried about. I even looked at this, I was like going, yeah, the animation still, I felt like there was still effort put into the creative, to the visual side of it, and definitely a lot of work put into the humor. But oddly enough, I think because they put so much work into the humor, I feel that may have been overcompensating for a plot that didn't focus on all the characters. I don't know much about Ninjago. I know that it is actually one of Lego's exclusive franchises. It's not like Lego Batman where it's from another source. This is their own franchise. So the idea of them making a movie of it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Actually, I was thinking about it when I found out about this movie. I was like, yeah, makes sense. It's one of their top brands. They even have a new attraction at Legoland for it. So that didn't surprise me in any shape, way, or form. I just felt like for their own brand, I'm surprised they didn't want to really represent that brand, because the problem is they do kind of throw us into the deep end in here. I did feel like I may need to do some reading because I know Lego Ninjago also has its own TV series, so I know they have their own everything, like their own mythos, their own franchise, and I felt like there could have been something I was more than likely missing. But if I'm not, comment section, that's what it's for. So there's that. I still admire the fact that Lego's standing on their own 2 feet on this one and not having to use the mythos of Batman as its foundation. If you're going to do that, if you're going to throw the unacquainted into this world, you got to give us the things that are going to be the primary focus. I want to focus on all the team of ninjas. Dave Franco, Justin Theroux, or actually especially Justin Theroux. Garmadon is a hilarious character, and he was fun to watch all the way through. In a way, because we're now taking Star Wars seriously again, Garmadon actually kind of feels like a return to Dark Helmet. In a way, he is kind of like that. He's got that same level of absurdity about him. And the one thing this movie does, and which is in keeping with the Lego movies before, is that it does keep the absurdity that we knew and loved from those prior films. And so much so that probably one of the best moments in the film is the idea that the big bad doesn't turn out to be Garmadon, suffice to say. It actually turns out to be a giant kaiju named Meowthra. And even seeing a live-action cat rampaging through a Lego city, it was the most adorable thing on the face of the planet. And there's a part of me going, yeah, that's how you would destroy the world. Actually, it's like that episode of Invader Zim, Hamstergeddon, with ultra pee-pee. And everyone's like, ah, and they get crushed. Because it's that same thing. And I think that's the problem. Actually, that is actually, I think, one of the primary problems. This movie has so many things where I'm looking at it, laughing at it because it's great, but unfortunately always has me heralding to other franchises, other movies, other TV shows where they did it and did it better. And that is a bad place for this movie to be. And it's a shame because there is effort put into it like the rest of them. You definitely felt like there was no half-assery done here. You did feel like there may have been some lack of communication. It did feel maybe like the writers were playing it safe by focusing on just two characters. And you don't want to do that. You can't have an ensemble cast and not focus on your ensemble. Am I going to discourage you from seeing it? No, far from it. If you're a Lego fan, you're still going to get your money's worth out of this, and it's going to be really funny. I was still laughing consistently to beat the band, and that was a blast. Also, I forgot to add, Jackie Chan has some great moments in there as well. I mean, you can always rely on him to play like the unconventional kung fu master, sage-like character. He still does a great job doing that. Because Lego Batman, the great thing about that one is that it just stayed in the world. It didn't have to do the real world like they did at the end of the Lego movie. But see, at the Lego movie, it was natural. It needed to happen because it played into the emotional arc of the entire movie. This one bookends it with some live-action sequences evolving. And I'm ashamed because it does do some good setup, particularly with Meowthra. But it felt unnecessary. I was like, why don't you just throw us into this world? I think it would have just worked fine standing on its own. Even Meowthra, the writers as skilled as this, who at least have some kind of attention to foreshadowing, to setting up stuff, you'd think they would have you could have found another way to have a freaking adorable cat rampaging through a Lego city. That, it seemed like a no-brainer. But if you are a fan of Lego, especially if your kids know Ninjago, because I know the kids would probably be the main, well, that's true of all the movies really, but if your kids are Ninjago fans from the animated series and the toys, they're going to have the time of their life. They're going to have a grand old time. But on the film standards, it was definitely a step down. Actually, I wouldn't even say like it was a deliberate step down, it just felt like they didn't go all the way. And there are some points where you do feel that. I mean, I would even say the final climax was, I can't even call it a climax. It was pretty anticlimactic for the most part. You'd think there's going to be a big battle sequence, and I was like looking forward to it. I was like, how are these guys going to fight a giant cat? And it was over practically as soon as it started, and I was kind of disappointed in that. I thought there could have been room for some really funny stuff, and they didn't go for it. So another missed opportunity there. So to wrap up, I'm going to have to give Lego Ninjago. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that this one is just as worthy of addition as the other two movies? Do you think that maybe this franchise has fallen apart just as quickly as it was put together? Leave it in the comments below, and for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe. Click, and thou shalt be served.